I'm architect based in Tokyo. I'm still young architect, and I'm now teaching in Los Angeles, and I'm now in Milano. It's very complicated, but yes, I'm here. He asked me to talk about something specific things, and that's why I talk about a kind of core of my practice. And unfortunately, I have no time, long time to talk a lot. So I choose one project, but yeah, I think it's enough. I would talk about the proportion. I talk about the new proportion, what I'm thinking. Of course, proportion, we would start from the, I have to start from the Victorian man by Vitruvius. It's a kind of first concept, first idea about the module or proportion. And it's developed by Le Corbusier with Finabovic and Golden, as you know. So when I was a student, I was so shocked and so fascinated with this concept he designed. With this system he designed from the furniture to the urban design. It's crazy, right? But at the same time, I a bit doubt why he have to use the same system in every scale. Why he have to use this system in different site? This was my first question when I was a student. And you know, this is Katsura in Japan. This is beautiful. But the Kenzo Tange or Kazuo Shinohara after the World War, that generation in Japanese architects tried to, identify the Japanese architecture, historical Japanese architecture from the point of view of the proportion. But let's say that is a kind of copy of European proportion. So what I want to talk today is kind of, I'm thinking about this paradigm shift. Until Kenzo Tange and Kazuo Shinohara, that is the era of proportion for order or beauty. In order to find the structure's order in the elevation and the proportion of the space, they need proportion for order or for beauty, right? But what I'm thinking in my practice in every project is not for order and beauty, but for, let's say, the new relation or even narrative of the architecture. I really like to think about it through the proportion. And I call it new proportion. And I will show one project because I have no time. He told me yesterday, I will kill you if I talk longer, so I have to finish in 20 minutes. This is a weekend house. The project is built in the forest. The weekend house in the forest. It takes 3 hours by car from Tokyo. What I did is to make a very high pilotis in the forest. Very high. It has 6.5 meters, this pilotis space. And upper floor is very intimate space, which has at the bottom, the lowest point, it has only 1.9 meters. So it's very, very low, a kind of intimate space like an attic space. On the ground floor, there's no inside, no interior. So it's just a semi-outdoor space and the volume, like this. Ground floor is the steel structure with brace. The column is 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter. The brace is only 3 centimeter. And upper floor is most traditional and common timber structure in Japan. First floor, I call it piazza in the forest. And the upper floor, it's just a very simple plan, which has 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and so on. This is the built in the forest. I'm sleeping on a hammock. I have to say the proportion of this space is, was very, very important for me. And in the process, I tried a lot of, in my project, I developed my architecture with model, a lot of models. And we continue to make a model and compare each other. And little by little, I try to understand what's the question, what is the issue of this project, and so on. And yes, I was so happy to struggle with the proportion this Piloti space. And finally, as I explained, 6.5 meter was a kind of my answer. I compare with another height like 5 meter, but little by little, in the beginning it looks the same, but little by little I became a kind of sensitive to the proportion. And 5 meter it looks, the space is too defined by the architecture. Let's say this Piloti space is belonging to the architecture. I checked the 7 meters high, and this space is start to melting in the forest. So 6.5 meters high is a kind of in-between space, in between architecture and nature. Actually, I visited 2 to 3 months ago there, and with a photographer, and I stand here on the concrete, and I realized again this height is kind of nice, because when I stand on the ground level, I can see the ceiling beam a little bit. But I sit on this bench, long bench, I cannot feel the ceiling at all. So this just the difference of the height, less than 1 meter. Sometimes we can feel it architecture, sometimes we can forget the architecture. So this is what I wanted to find this sense, the architecture between architecture and nature. And the proportion of the Piloti was also important, but also the proportion of the element is always important in my architecture. This is a study model of the beam, how to arrange the proportion of the dimension of beams and so on. And in the end, we did this kind of super thinner beam in order to make a nice relation with branch and leaves. I tried to make a kind of a nice continuity between these beams and branch and leaves, somehow, the continuity of the scale. So I don't want to make a kind of like a look with the Piloti, Kenzo Tange Piloti. The floating, let's float by concrete. I didn't like it in this forest. And in the upper floor, yes, it's a very intimate space, but I put 4 super huge windows to every direction. So this interior is attacking to the outside and landscape of the forest. I put the glass table and the glass floor on the dining space, so you can look down and checking the kids playing on the floor. And yes, when you wake up in the morning, you set the hammock between the column and prepare the brunch with friends and start to drink the wine even in the morning and start to sleep immediately. And yeah, basically I propose, let's say I try to propose something, a new way of staying in the forest. I don't like the weekend house just for the rich man. He enters inside and the big window with couch and wine and so on. Very protected space in the forest. Rather than such a thing, yeah, I try to enjoy, I try to propose the most of half of the time they stayed in the forest in a nice way or new way. And I started to, all the time in my project, it's important to start from the architectural element. In this case, Pilotis. I forget to tell about it. In this area, it's very famous about the humidity. So especially in rainy season like June, July, it's really bad on the ground. So every building has a small piloting space. But all the time it's 1 meter or 1.2 meter. So they use it as a storage or machine space and so on. I started a kind of common element every building share in this area. But I wanted to find out the new way of using this common language. This is my way. And all the time, the proportion is always very important to find out new way. And I have no time, so this is a conclusion, let's say. What is a new proportion? It's in order to find out, in order to open our sense. I think this is a task of architect, I believe. We have to continue to try to open our sense, open the sense of human beings, because our sense is always changing, our way of thinking, idea is changing, and our feeling, our sense is not stable, is not fixed. All the time, the changing of the technology, changing of lifestyle, all the time our sense is changing. So we should not believe one sense or something like that, because architecture is super strong to fix, close our sense. I want to try to open our sense in architecture. And at that time, I think it's important to think about with proportion. I try to find I try to renew the relation. In this case, it might be a relation between inside and outside, architecture and nature, and so on, for example. And meaning, I like to think about the meaning of the architecture. So it's interesting all the time to start from the architectural element like roof, pilotis, balcony, and so on. So, but I like to shift the meaning. The piloti is not only in order to keep a distance from the ground. It can be the space for new way of living in nature. So this is what I wanted to say in Pilotine Forest. And gravity is also very interesting to think. I'm not a magician, so I cannot erase the gravity, but architect can shift the sense of gravity, especially with the proportion. Proportion of the space, proportion of the beam, proportion of the architectural element. The proportion has a power to shift, to make a new image of gravity. So gravity is really important in my space. And last, this is the most important, of course, the life. We need to show the new image of life, new image of how to live in this planet by architecture. So this is a kind of my issue in every project.